Well, hello, everybody. You're here with the Entrepreneur Hour, Season 2, Episode 2. We got some fun things going on today. I have a special guest with me today, a good friend of mine, Mr. Ismail Monroy with Events. Is that how you say it right? Invents. And I've known Ismail for about 7 years.
It has been.
And it has been a roller coaster for him. And the reason why I brought him in today was to talk about, hey, change is always evident in the business world and with people. So what I'll start off with is letting Ismail give you a little bit about himself first, and then we'll go back and bring around what I brought him on to talk about today, about versatility in the business world. So, Ismail, if you can just introduce yourself to our audience and tell them a little bit about you.
Thanks, Robert. My name's Ismail Monroy. As Robert mentioned, I am the Chief Commercial Officer and Partner with Invents Media Group. It's a live event audiovisual production company. I'm also the owner and president of Monroy Enterprises, a consultant and investment firm that kind of specializes in trying to grow new businesses. And that's kind of what I'm doing today.
Yeah. So when I met Ismail, he hired me, just so everybody knows, everything being out there and transparent. He hired me for the Miramar Pembroke Pines Regional Chamber of Commerce 7 years ago. And at that time, if I remember correctly, because you've got history going on, you were actually the general manager at that time of the Hilton, or you had just left the Hilton and moved to a larger piece.
Correct. I had just made the change. So right before you came on board, I was general manager of the Hilton in Miramar. And that was kind of the culmination after about an 18-year career in hospitality. I started when I was 16 years old. I was very young when I got into that business. But it's been about 10 years as a GM at multiple outlets. And then I became GM of that Hilton. And when I met you, I had just become regional vice president of a company called PSAV, which was a audiovisual company as well.
Yeah. So what I want to talk about is throughout your life, you have been mobile. Even when you were working in the hotel industry, you've moved to a little bit around in the hotel industry before I even met you. But specifically in the last 4 or 5 years, you've moved around also. And what I want to talk about specifically are, I guess my first question is, what are some of the skill sets that you had to have to move from hotel to PSAV? Because I remember when you went into PSAV, you had nada experience with audio and visual equipment at all.
This is true.
And it was funny because you got hired as a sales manager aspect, if I remember correctly. And you were out there, and it was funny because my background is actually in audio visual, and I was laughing at you because you would go places and you didn't know when you first started, you didn't know the pieces that you had of your puzzle. So let's start there. Let's talk about, to start off with, and that aspect of change that you've had, and what some of those skills and things that you need to be aware of in this moving world.
Well, I think a lot of it comes from flexibility and the willingness to adapt and learn in whatever environment that you're in. As mentioned, I had been in hotels since I was 16 years old, and that was the business that I knew. But it wasn't about the technical parts of the hospitality business. I was strong there. But one of what I always try to work on is how to become a better leader and a better manager, how to understand how to manage the business, how to understand how to impact the financials of the business, and to really lead and develop people to do the best with the resources that they have. When I was approached to look at this opportunity with PSAV, you're absolutely right. I knew nothing about AV. I mean, I knew how to turn on my TV at home, but that was about the limits of what I had. And then I was tapped to be vice president of operations for a very large region in the company without necessarily understanding the product that I was managing. But the biggest thing that I understood when I went in was to learn and tap the resources that I had, learn from the people who were around me, look at how to build the right team around me, and listen to those around me. I knew very quickly on, I was brought on to help grow the business and to handle, just the economics of the business. But I didn't know the day-to-day. And if I went in thinking that I had the solution for everything, I was not going to succeed. I was very quick to speak to my people. I had 400 people on my team. And I was very quick to tell them, you know what? I don't know how this equipment works. I'll be the first to admit that. What I'm going to do is make sure that all of you have the resources, training, and development to do your jobs. I'm going to ask you for input, and I want to learn what you need every single day in the business. And then I'm going to bring what I bring to the table, which is how do we make that more efficient? How do we build on that? And how do I get the tools into your hands to do your jobs? My first regional meeting, it was comical because we had, it was about 50 directors, so management level professionals who were in that room, and we were having a projector problem. And I was the first one to say, "I don't know how this thing works," and everyone just laughed. But I admit, I had no fear of doing that because I was very clear to tell them I bring something to the table as well. But if I tried to tell them how to do their jobs without knowing what their jobs were, that wasn't going to be successful at all.
And that has been one of your big skill sets. Instead of looking at the skills that the job actually needed, you brought your leadership skills to find the right people and utilize the right people to do their job and to maximize their skill levels. And that's been something that I've seen with you over and over again. So when we're talking a little bit about Ismail's history, again, when I met him, it was in the hotel industry. Then he went to PSAV, but what else he's done, he started consulting on his own with various hotel and other businesses. He also ended up doing a lot of work with the Chamber of Commerce. He also ran for office and was a commissioner for a short time. And now you have your own company. You're still consulting too.
Yep.
And in that, it's been kind of funny. So let's talk about those leadership skill sets that you have honed over the years, because it's been when we look at Miramar, Pembroke Pines, and our region that we live in here, a lot of things that you've been able to do came from your leadership skills first. And I think the other aspect is knowing what you don't know.
Yeah.
And then also finding people that could help you build on what you don't know and those strengths. So talk a little bit about how you've gone through that process in building.
Well, I think, it kind of goes back to my hotel days. Hospitality is a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week business. It doesn't close. It's constantly going. You can't be there all day. You can't do everything. And the first responsibility you have to learn as a leader in that business is how to develop and trust in other people, and how to bring people in to fill in the gaps and understand when to delegate and how to delegate. I've carried those principles in everything that I've done since, understanding that whatever endeavor I was going to jump into, I don't know everything. I'm the first one to say it. I don't. And I accept that. But what I do is I look for talent to help fill in those gaps. I'm not afraid to ask the questions, hey, how do we do this? How should we do this? What do you think of this? And taking that input from multiple sources. A lot of it is from the people who are in the business, as well as talking to people who have been successful in other businesses. Because one thing that I think a lot of people do and a lot of businesses do, they pigeonhole folks into their own industry. And they forget that there are just as experienced and successful folks in other industries who may be able to bring a unique perspective that someone who's spent 20 years in one industry doesn't necessarily see, because they have that tunnel vision of their own business. So I make sure to seek out experts, get that advice from multiple sources about a particular issue, how I should look at that, and then based on the input, make a decision. And make a decision with all of the confidence to move forward, but without the fear of failure, knowing, hey, this may not be the right one, but let's move forward. And I'm willing to course correct if we need to. I've been blessed that I've had a lot of great talent who's stayed with me for 20 years, either through my consulting business or still resources for me to tap and get, answers to questions that I might have. But the main thing is to realize you're not the expert. At the end of the day, no one's really the expert. It's about taking multiple points of view, multiple perspectives, and making a decision with as much information as you possibly can.
And folks, as all of you know, when you know my style, you're thinking right off the bat that I'm thinking of my good friend here, and I just want to yell Pollyanna, and it's not true, because it's not that. Where we've had other guests on here that just seem to fall over for people all the time. What I really admire about Ismail is that while he doesn't yell, I don't believe I ever heard you raise your voice and get really upset with individuals, even when we've had major challenges as you and I have worked
It's
together.
rare, but it happens. But it's rare.
but a lot of times you do. One of the things I think you have a very strong skill for, and it's a skill that you have down pat. I don't know if you were born with it or you learned it, but it is that skill of listening to other people, hearing them out before you make a decision. And for somebody like me, I'm just the opposite. You know that from working with me. I'm like, hey, there's an option, and let's run with it right now. And if it's going to run us into a wall, I'm okay with that. We'll be okay. We'll be banged up, but I'm ready to run. You actually think through some things a little bit better than I do. I would definitely say I bring ideas, and sometimes the thing that I really appreciate about you is that you also understand that there's a time and a place for things. Where you and I have had ideas and we're like going, hey, this is the greatest idea in the world. And then we're like going, and you look at me and go, but we're going to have to hold.
Yeah.
It's not the time yet. And you do see counsel from other people. And I know you've surrounded yourself with people that really compliment you over the time. So
one thing you have to be careful when you do that, though, is you don't go into analysis paralysis. It's very easy. A lot of leaders try to have the open door policy and say, I want to hear every idea. And the problem is they listen to every idea and every second idea. And before you know it, they fear making a decision. At some point, you have to say, okay, I have the information I need, or maybe I have 80% of the information I need. It's time for me to make my decision. And I need to be confident and move forward. I've seen a lot of folks who have worked either for me or with me who run into that struggle of they want to be that open ear and listen, but then nothing gets done because they're shifting with the winds. It's like, no, once the decision's made, we all run with it. We're all responsible for it. And if we have to course correct, we do. But we don't second guess it.
Yeah,
it's time to move forward.
Well, I remember a great example of that with the chamber when you had just stepped down from being the chair and we were doing the teddy bear project. folks, this teddy bear project lasted almost 9 months because we had somebody that said, hey, one person said, hey, those things aren't made in the United States. And it's like, okay, we'll start looking for others. And then when we couldn't find it, we ended up going to different items to give these poor kids and spent so much time because we wanted to hear everything on the subject. And I just remember months and months of doing research and knowing where every teddy bear in the United States is created, what goes into them and how those things happen. And while we were still having people frustrated on the board that just wanted to get the project done, but it was paralysis. We just got stuck there. We got 2 minutes. That's what she was raising her hand. So let's talk a little bit about some of the other things that you've done. Okay, because you've switched over. We went from the hotel. We went to PSAV, which you did very successful there. You grew that business and kept it going, and went up to high levels in the VP position of the organization. But just before we do that, we are going to take a break. Marcella's given me the sign, so I don't want to ever not listen to Marcella. So we're going to go take a break, and we'll be right back with the Entrepreneur Hour.
A wise man had a dream, a great dream of love, to build a university for everyone, a dream to create a holistic world of one. With reasoning and intuition, he made his start. A vision was born deep in his his heart. Leadership, vision, and emotional intelligence. Entrepreneurs in a diverse environment, and with excellence. Latina, experience with confidence. Latina, human warmth and friendship. Latina, creative thinkers and innovation. Latina, experience with confidence. Latina, human warmth and friendship. Latina, where all of your dreams come to fruition. Latina, experience with confidence. Latina, warmth and friendship. Latina, creative thinkers and innovation. Latina, experience with confidence. Latina, warmth and friendship. Latina, where all of your dreams come to fruition. Latina.
And we are back with the Entrepreneur Hour. Oh, we're having some great fun here. I have with us for this next segment still Ismail Monroe. Then we're going to be switching over and adding some new things to the show today. We're excited about it, talking about the college and everything going on here. So, Ismail, we got to the point that you did all this great work with PSAV. You made a decision. You're leaving again, and you're running for office.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because going from business to government, two different birds. Tell me some of the skills that worked well for you moving over there in business, and what were some of those challenges that you had to deal with?
I think I've always been involved in the community while I was in business, so it was the next natural evolution for me to do it, to run for office in my own backyard. What I found while I was in office, a lot of the same skills translate in terms of the customer service component, right? In business, we're constantly looking for a way to evolve and become more relevant and provide a service to our customers. If you're a good representative in representative government, you are providing customer service to your residents, and you're responding to their issues and concerns and understanding what those issues are, and either addressing them or explaining to them why you may not be able to. I was proud of the fact that I was able to, answer every call, respond to everyone, meet anyone who had an issue, because I took that customer service philosophy into representative government. The flip side of it is, in business, you can usually get things done in a quicker pace. Government, the old adage is true. The wheels of government run slow as molasses. And while there were several projects that we're trying to get passed and move forward, it just takes time. And part of it is just a function of what government is, because naturally there are definitely many more stakeholders, and you need to get input from many more stakeholders. But at the same time, you have folks who truly want to see change impacted now. And because of some of the inefficiencies in government and some of the political gamesmanship that takes place, unfortunately, it delays the process. It delays your ability to provide that service in a quick manner like I was used to in the business world. I'd like to make things happen for people now, and in government, it took longer than I was used to.
Mm-hmm. And you were working great there in customer service and taking care of the individuals that were not only in your district, but outside of that, and going through that. Where is, because I'm going to switch over just a little bit. Politics today are so different, and you and I have some commonalities, but we also have some very differences in our beliefs, because when I had met you, you were Republican to the extent, and going through, and then even in your political aspect, you kind of changed because you saw a difference in how politics are being done now compared to 15, 20 years ago, where it's a little bit more, I'm going to use the word cordial, than it is in today's world. It seems like even on the local level, it's a little bit Well, it's a lot fractured. And so I know when we went through your election at the end, it was like, wow, you tried to do the right thing. You were doing the right things. And the people out there, the voters, were looking for that controversial push.
I think the issue today is that instead of focusing on what the issues are, let's resolve a problem. There's way too much attention to pay to the personalities involved. And you can argue on a sociological scale, is it the advent of reality TV and social media? But people today just get way too wound up when it comes to politics in what the other politician is doing and what the issue is with that person or the other candidate or, the opposition. And they forget about the fact that there's a core issue to be resolved. And what matters is how do you resolve that? And don't worry about if it's a Republican or a Democrat who came up with the idea. If it's a good idea, go with it.
Yeah.
That's what matters. But right now it's about, who can drive the comment window the longest and get the most likes and drive the most activity to their website, to their social media page by being the most controversial, causing the most issues, simply for the fact that they want that attention on themselves and forget that there's an issue to be resolved.
Yeah, and I see this in politics, left and right, a lot, where when we were talking, and folks, just so you know, I'm not going off on a political tangent here.
It's hard today not to.
We're really talking about business and personalities in being able to be versatile. Being versatile means that you can go with other people's ideas, that you value other people's skill levels and knowledge that they bring to the table. And I see a lot of times now, and I see it in business too. I see it more in businesses that fail than I do see that in good, prosperous businesses, that when we think we know all the answers, and a business owner wants to be, it's his business, he thinks he knows all the answers. And when we go to that point, our businesses falter because we don't know all the answers. There's new things popping up every day, and there's skill sets that for a business, and another reason why I wanted you to be on today was to let people know that, you know what, a business person doesn't have all the answers. They know the right people, though, that have the answers to build that business. And that's what makes successful businesses. And I think nowadays, politicians, and I hear it to the dais, I hear it on TV all the time, that I know the issue. You have individuals making decisions on projects and things, saying they know the stuff. And you know what? They may be trained as a lawyer or a doctor or something else. They're not a mechanic. They're not a construction builder. They don't have those skills. They're not the end user. And I think that's another thing that we always need to look at, is who that end user is, and are they getting the services that they need? And as a business person, we really worry about that, because it's very easy for us to go out of business because our competition will take it away from us in a heartbeat, compared to our government entities, where if it fails, all that really means is higher taxes next year to pay for something else.
You've got to be able to adapt.
Yeah.
And in business, you've got to be able to provide that service or that solution for your customer, and be able to be flexible and adapt. And it's the same thing in politics. Your customer or your residents. It's not your loudest resident, it's all your residents.
Yeah. So let's talk about, so after the election moved on, you decided you were doing some consulting up in Orlando for months, almost a year.
About a year, yeah.
About a year up there. And they hired you again because of your skill set in working with people. You had two owners who couldn't get along. I remember the conversations we've had. We won't say their names or the company, but people who had money, who'd been in the business, but they couldn't get to work together and get their employees to work together to move positively. And you spent a year there struggling. Tell us a little bit about that, because again, I just want to keep on going back to that skill set that I believe true business leaders need. They need to have this skill set of being able to work with other people.
I think the best example of it is, if if you're trying to take your business or whatever it is that you're responsible for, and you're trying to evolve it, to grow it, to do something different, and what you have done to that point has gotten you there, but hasn't taken you to the next level. You have to be willing to listen to other opinions and be willing to make changes if folks are giving you other suggestions on how to change the business to get to that level. Otherwise, you're gonna get the same results. And one of the struggles that I found was an inability of some this particular client. They wanted to do more. They wanted to be more, but they wouldn't change how they did business to get there. And that a lot of that had to do with also how they treated people within the business. Ultimately, folks will work hard for you out of motivation and out of the ability to grow and develop more so than they will out of fear. And there was an environment that kind of encouraged, work or you're fired versus let's build something to get to the next place. And that's what I found, was a challenge there. And again, it was a classic situation of not being willing to adapt or change what you did. And that's why they were getting the same results.
Yeah, and I see so many people get into that aspect, and depending on who you are, you are a chameleon in that aspect, that you can move around and fit into that. And we've had the conversation about my personality. I've always said, hey, there's a certain point in time that I'm going to say, hey, this isn't for me anymore, because for the organization to grow, I need to step away because it needs somebody different at the helm, or somebody different doing the projects that I'm doing, and being cognizant,
you've got
knowledgeable about that.
You got to realize when you can make that a change, or when you're not the person to do that anymore, and to step away. And that's always been one thing for me, to learn how to know how far I can take an organization, do my part, and then move to what I need to do next for myself and leave that organization in better hands.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't do that.
A lot of people
overstay their welcome.
Overstay their welcome, and next thing you know, there's crashing and burning in that. Last but not least, because I think we've got like a minute left here, I just want to, you switched over to now the event marketing program and things of that nature, and you're looking at a lot of other things. What could you tell our audience to strive for and look for? How do they get that skill that you have? And where could they find and refine that skill? And then just close with your name and company again.
I think it's overcoming the fear to take that step for yourself. Look, when anyone sits and looks at what their work product and what they have accomplished, it's what I looked at. I was very successful in different realms and had done a lot and made millions for other people, and said to myself, why am I not taking that chance for myself? So frankly, I think the biggest skill you need is to have that self-confidence, to be willing to take that risk, to be able to handle the ups and downs and cycles of being your own business owner. And it's really just a flexibility and adaptability to say, hey, you know what? If I can do this every day in my life, why don't I try and do it for myself? And once you can answer that question and say, okay, I'm willing to take those risks, it's worth it. And it's worked for, my audiovisual company, Invents Media Group, and for my, private consulting business, Monarch Enterprises.
Well, I want to thank you, Ismail, for being with us today. Good friend of mine. I'm glad he was able to come out here today. Folks, the reason, again, when you look at people, and hopefully you'll listen to this podcast again, it's about being versatile. You're looking at a man, or hearing from a man, I should say, unless you're on the YouTube, then you're seeing him also. You're seeing a person who has jumped from different jobs, also different careers and different functionality very easily, almost seamlessly, because of the skills he's developed and understanding that he has about himself. And just want to make sure that you understand that as business owners, we need to be versatile. We also need to be understanding of our own skill levels and our own capabilities, and being able to look at other people to fill in those areas that we may be deficient in. We're going to take another break here, and we'll be right back with the Entrepreneur Hour.